My name is Morgan Garcia, and I am the founder of the Berkeley Pulse. I am starting my Alumni Spotlight series where I will highlight the alumni who have touched UC Berkeley. And I want to get an idea of the culture at UC Berkeley throughout the time that it's existed. And today, our first interview is going to be with Patrick Laird, who studied at Cal from 2014 to 2018. And I'm really interested to get his perspectives on Cal culture, both athletically and academically, as we look ahead to what's next for Cal.
I'm so excited to be here.
How are you doing today?
Doing well. Yeah. Yeah, living down here in North County, San Diego. So I was traveling up to all the Cal games this year and you know, I think there was I know we're going to get in more to Cal sports, but I know we're in what we're thinking about right now is the new head coaching situation, but yeah, I'm doing well because I feel like there's a lot of excitement around the future of this program.
Yes, sir. How many games did you get to go to this year?
I went to, I think, six total. So we started the countdown and wrap up show a few games into the season. I actually missed the first show because I was traveling to see one of my best friends. But I had gone to an earlier game in the year, the Minnesota game, because that was the reading challenge game. And so I always, since I've been able to, I've been trying to go to all the reading challenge games to, help keep that going and then, talk to some of the kids that participated and the parents and everything.
So that's one of the things I actually talked to you about when I met you on the field the other day is that reading challenge. I was a freshman in high school. This was 2017, and I was about 14 years old for a couple of months, 15 afterwards. And I remember being at these games, watching you get these touchdowns and opening that book. Such a unique kind of celebration that you don't really see in college football or NFL. So tell me about kind of the origin story of that celebration and how did you create this movement afterwards for the youth?
Yeah, so it's a story I've told a few times, but I guess I'll tell the whole thing just for anyone that hasn't heard it. So in 2016, one of my roommates, I lived in this house, which is actually funny enough. Football guys still live there now. We basically they just kept passing it down to other football guys. So people still live in the house that I lived in college. And one of my roommates was Chad Hansen, and he had this breakout season as a wide receiver in 2016, and he's doing all these fun touchdown celebrations. Probably the one that got the most traction online was the horns down when we beat Texas. And so we would just come up with different touchdown celebrations for Chad to do when he scored, because in our house, he was like the one scoring all the touchdowns. And then it was one of those, late nights. We're all sitting around in the living room kind of chatting, and we all started brainstorming ideas like, hey, if this person scored, what would they do? Kind of a funny conversation. And at the time I was playing on, special teams, had pretty much only played some garbage minutes on offense. And so someone jokingly said, if Pat ever scored a touchdown, he'd probably pretend to read a book. And they're just, kind of poking fun at me. And I thought it was a kind of a funny idea. So I kept it in the back of my mind thinking, if I ever get a score at Cal, I'm going to do this open the book reading a book touchdown celebration. And actually later that season in garbage minutes, I did score a touchdown, but we lost the game to Washington by tons and no one even noticed. And it just, a year goes by. I go into the 2017 season. Coach Wilcox was just hired earlier that year. I was in the rotation at running back. I think I was third on the depth chart, but wasn't the starter at that point. And we're at North Carolina. I have this like long touchdown reception and I do the book celebration. And funny enough, the Cal football Twitter account tweeted it saying like namaste or something like that. And one of our other roommates, Ray Hudson, actually corrected. He goes, that's actually Pat pretending to read a book because he enjoys learning and like school or something like that. And then the following week, our starting running back goes down. And then I just happened to be in and started kind of having the hot hand that game and just got a lot of, decent amount of carries and ended up scoring, I think, 3 times. And each time I was scoring, I kept doing the book celebration. And so then from then the Cal fans are like, who's this kid that keeps pretending to read a book after, and then I became the starter and I just kept scoring and kept doing the book celebration, did like iterations of like turning a page or grabbing a book off of a shelf. And it just makes sense that Berkeley fans would like that there's a, football player that is not afraid to showcase his interest in reading and school. So then at the end of that season, I had always done an internship over the summer. I was walk on at Cal. I came literally just because of the Haas Business School, and didn't really have dreams of playing professional football. But I had, after my junior season, I started getting interest from like agents saying, "Hey, are you interested in playing the NFL?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll pursue playing in the NFL. So this whole summer, I'm just going to focus on football." But you can only work out so many hours in the day. And I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of my time? So I came up with this idea. I had learned about this concept of summer learning loss. So kids will finish like third grade and go into the summer. And if they don't pick up a book all summer, they regress in their reading proficiency or their reading level. And so fourth grade teachers have to spend the first few weeks of the school year trying to get their kids caught back up to the fourth grade reading level, or where they should be at the start of the fourth grade year. And so I had this idea in my head. I was like, hey, why don't I go to Cal Athletics? I'll go to the athletic department and pitch this idea. There's an easy way to stave off summer learning loss. Kids just have to read about 4 to 6 books over the summer. And so came up with this program. Kids read their books. They fill up this log. They turn it into the athletic department, and then they would get free tickets. And so I asked for like 1 or 2 tickets maybe per kid. And they came back and they're like, we'll give away 4 free tickets. Wow, and so I was like, all right, sweet. So then I just started promoting. I don't know if they knew how many people I was going to get to sign up. We had a couple thousand signups. I think, that 2018 season was the first year of it. The opening season, we had like a whole section filled of kids and their parents, who had participated. And then plus we had more that couldn't make that first game. And that was the start of it. And then, luckily enough, we had players on the team and administrators that wanted to keep the challenge going. So even when I went off to Florida, to Miami, we had a guy like, we had Mike Safell take on the challenge, and he did it for a couple of years. And then Matthew Cindric and Brian Driscoll. And so we just had players step up. And then the Cal Cameron Institute, which I think came about a few years ago, they have full-time employees. They do like community engagement and help student athletes at Cal. They've kind of taken on the mantle of keeping the challenge going, now making it easier for the current student athletes. And then recently this year, we just expanded to the whole athletic department. So now if you're playing softball or swimming or gymnastics, you can go and promote reading to the local elementary and junior high schools, and they can earn tickets to come to a Cal athletic event. So that's the long-winded story about how it all happened. And I'm just super grateful that there's people at Berkeley that want to keep it going.
I just think it just feels so beneficial to help out kids in that type of environment. And I've worked with kids from Title I schools all the way to like schools that are well funded. And I've seen various levels of reading level. And I'm wondering, what have you seen from children in this generation, especially with the rise of technology and we have AI happening? And how did you create that passion at Cal and move that forward into the kids to get reading to become a skill that they could practice day to day?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an important point. And sorry, my dog is going to be sitting here
Hi,
with
Bubba.
us during this interview. He just hopped up on the bench. So one of the first classes I actually took at Cal was it was called Inequality of Education, and it was focused on United States public education. And I think when I took that class, it was one of those first moments in my life where I had realized that like the experience and the upbringing that I had was vastly different than a lot of the people, across the United States. And so I grew up on the central coast of California, a small town called Arroyo Grande, which is in San Luis Obispo County, for people that, might know SLO or Cal Poly a little bit better than Arroyo Grande. And it's a nice, quiet, easy place to grow up. And I have 2 parents, who were both educated. I have 3 older siblings, 2 younger siblings. We all went to college. So growing up, that was the expectation. You were going to do well in school. You were going to read, do your homework, study for your tests, like do AP class. Like that was just like the expectation. And that was just normal to me. And then I go to one of my first classes at Berkeley is I realized like, wow, the experience I had growing up was not the same. Not everybody has older siblings that go on to, great universities and people to look up to, or they might have parents that care about their education, but are just so busy working jobs and maybe have multiple jobs and just can't spend the time supporting their kids in their academic pursuit. And so, yeah, I was just like that. I don't think there's like an obligation necessarily for Division I athletes to go out and do these things. But if you do feel called and you feel like you realize that you had a maybe a little bit easier time growing up, like it's a cool opportunity. You are in a position to go into a classroom and say, hey, yes, I am a member of the Cal football team, but I wouldn't be here unless I took school and academics seriously. And so, yeah, and that was like one of the big messages I would bring into the classrooms, like, hey, yes, I do play football, but in order to excel in football, like you have to have some base level of smarts, knowledge, the ability to sit down and focus. And like, our playbooks are big. So you have to be able to like read a playbook, study. And like, you can't just do that showing up to football practice. Like, you got to hone those skills from when you're in first grade to sixth grade to freshman year of high school to senior year of high school. Like, you got to get a little bit better as a student because you're going to be a student for the rest of your life if you want to be successful in whatever you want to do. And so, yeah, I would just preach that message. And that was like a big part of my motivation, was realizing like the upbringing I had was very fortunate. I was very blessed. So why don't I try to pass on some of, my fortune to others?
Yeah.
As cliche as that sounds.
No, that's the right way to look at it. That's how I try to live my life too. I try to acknowledge kind of the good and the bad, but understand where I've come from in a place of privilege. And being in an environment like Berkeley, I get to interact with so many different walks of life. And
Yeah.
it might, although we're in the number one public university in the world, and you're interacting with like the smartest people, smartest collection of people day to day, you have people who grew up poor in other countries or people that grew up like rich here or vice versa, and just a
Mhm.
lot of different experiences in life. It's an interesting culture here, and that's something that I want to do at the Berkeley Pulse, is really document the culture at Berkeley and understand how we can align the high academic culture with the high excellence in athletics.
I really like that point about the culture of Berkeley. And Chancellor Lyons has talked about this in a few interviews. There's a economist at Berkeley that studied the he went into IRS data and studied which universities had students arrive at the lowest quintile. Their parents like were in the lowest quintile of earnings in the United States, and then what percentage of those kids go through a university and end up in the highest quintile. And I think Berkeley actually ranked number one. So it's just within like it's within the culture, it's within the ethos of Berkeley. Like, whoever shows up, it doesn't matter where you came from. Like, Berkeley gives you an opportunity to rise above wherever you started in life. And that's what the education system in my mind should be. It should be the great equalizer. Like, if the United States developed an amazing education system where it's like, it doesn't matter how much money your parents made, we should provide every person in the United States and a good enough education level where if they just get the opportunity to choose their own path in life. Because honestly, it's like there's always exceptions. People always hear about the stories. Like, a lot of the students that show up to Berkeley from poor backgrounds end up being the exceptions in their neighborhoods or their communities. And it would be great if that wasn't the case. So it would be awesome if it was like everybody got those
Yeah.
opportunities. And so, yeah, that's what I really love about Berkeley, is like anybody can show up and just totally improve the trajectory of their lives and then their future families' lives.
I see so much passion from everyone here with whatever they're doing. I like to make the joke that not only I am, but everyone else is just a nerd. My roommate is a mechanical engineering student. He's 30 years old. He's so nerdy about what he loves, which is great because I am a writer and I'm just such a nerd about it. I love writing. I love to
No.
teach people writing. I just love everything about it. One thing I wanted to hone in on in culture, I wanted to get an idea of how you would summarize culture at Berkeley in general or UC Berkeley, and give me a definitive moment that you realized that this was the culture here at Berkeley.
Hmm. It's hard to define the Berkeley culture. I mean, it's good to think about though, because it's like the first thing I want to say about it is like diverse, because there really isn't one monolithic culture at Berkeley, besides the idea that we're all like accepting that everybody's different, everybody has these different passions. Like you said, you like writing, roommate likes engineering. Like I went to Berkeley because of the Haas School of Business. Like that was my passion. I ended up studying political science as well. That became like a new passion of mine. So like a diverse set of like, yeah, diverse thinking. And it's not like just diverse in terms of like the way you think about ethnicity or anything like that. It's like diverse backgrounds of, socioeconomic backgrounds, diverse interests, um, diverse extracurriculars that like Berkeley provides everybody the opportunity to pursue. And like you're starting a
Is
media collective, like Berkeley's the perfect place to start a media collective
mhm.
ran by students. And so, yeah, I mean, people talk about the strength in diversity. And it's hard to like articulate how that plays out. But I think Berkeley is just like a perfect place to see how it plays out, where people can do incredible things. I mean, Berkeley has the most funded startups in venture capital across all universities, which I think is another incredible stat. So people are breaking ground in technology as undergrads and graduate students and getting startup money. And like it's just, I don't know, it's the culture of the place. Like you show up to Berkeley and you get to pursue whatever you want, and it's because everybody else is doing the same exact thing.
I love to focus in on culture because it's kind of my interest. I took a cultural theory class this semester for my English seminar. I reference culture for sure in athletics and academics at Berkeley because not only has Rich Lyons talked about this, but I've also seen interviews of Ron Rivera talking about this alignment that they're aiming to have with you have Rich Lyons and Ron Rivera and Tosh Lupoy, who are all Cal grads. I'm wondering what's this Cal culture in the locker room or in athletics specifically that's just so necessary for them to have a line at the top leadership.
100%. And I was saying this before, Lapoy was hired, and like when I was brought on to do the Cal football countdown and wrap up show, part of the idea is we hired Ron Rivera earlier this year. There's this sea change happening in college football where we believe some sort of realignment, super realignment's coming in the next couple years, right? The Big Ten and SEC are basically dominating in terms of just competitively, viewership, attendance, all that. But there are still some other other institutions across the United States that like, hey, we have the capability, we have a fan base that can compete with some of those bigger programs. And so one small thing, I mean, Cal's just doing a lot, right? So different marketing initiatives, bringing in more donors, more alumni. And then, the Cal Football Countdown Show is just another little marketing thing. Let's get more eyeballs. When people show up to game day at Berkeley, at California Memorial Stadium, they're seeing a live show that myself and Greg Silver were hosting, and we're bringing on the Chancellor, we're bringing on Ron Rivera, we're bringing on former players. And it's all part of this idea that Cal and Berkeley have the prestigious academics that everybody across the United States knows about. Why not match the academics with the prestige of our academics with our athletic department? And I mean, granted, Cal already has like prestigious Olympic level sports, right? So like our swimming, our golf, like we already have some elite programs, water polo, I'm
Rugby's
probably
always
missing
insane.
rugby, right? Like we're dominating in some sports, but it just so happens that culturally football happens, it has the most viewership. And I think Ron likes to talk about how it's kind of the front porch of your athletic department. So you could have like a dominant, baseball, softball, gymnastics team, swimming. But if your football program is kind of mediocre year over year, which unfortunately, Cal has had some spurts and we've had great players, but it's been a while since we've won a conference championship. And so that kind of clouds the outsider's perspective of the athletics. And so this is the moment where we have a chancellor who's an undergrad at Cal. We have a GM, and GM's our new position pretty much in college football. I was undergrad at Cal, now a head coach. I was undergrad. So we have Cal guys. And we have, and I think Ron and his and Chancellor Lyons are trying to sell this idea like, hey, why not at Cal? Like, why not have the prestige of our academics match our athletics? And so I'm totally on board with that. And I think you're hitting the nail on the head. Like culture is going to be a huge part of that. And so I think it is important to have people that went to Cal as undergrads and understand some of like the institutional challenges. And this is something that like you experience like right when you show up at Cal. Like, so when I showed up, you were given the tools to get yourself through your day to day in your school, but like no one was holding your hand doing it, right? So like they would be like, hey, you need to sign up for classes by Friday, and here's like a link to like sign up and do your research. Like when I got to the NFL and I was, talking to some of my teammates in the NFL, like they were just handed a schedule and like, here's the classes you're taking. Like you want to be a excuse me, you want to be a sociology major? Here's your classes. This is what you're going to take in this fall. Here's in the spring. And it was just kind of like a plug and play. And excuse me. There's nothing wrong with that for some people, but Berkeley is a place where you show up and you're going to be thrown into the fire a little bit. And then if you survive, you're going to come out a very strong, well-rounded person. And I think that can be a challenge in getting kids to show up, but I think it also could be a selling point. And I think people that went to Berkeley know that, right? So if you go to a class and you're, excuse me, let me drink some water. If you go to Cal and you show up to a class and you're wearing your football t-shirt, like your professor is not going to give it to you any easier than, it actually might make it in some situations a little bit more difficult. They might think you're not going to be, you're not going to try as hard, or you're not going to be as smart as the other students, which unfortunately sometimes might be the case because there's some really, really smart students there. But so I think having people that went to Cal as undergrads, understand the culture, understand the challenges. But instead of saying, oh, these are challenges that we have to overcome, let's actually take that and reframe it and be like, hey, this is a place that shapes strong, well-rounded people that if you can make it through Berkeley as an undergrad and we can build a great football program, like the stories you can tell. And when you go to, in the future, when you go interview at a job, like you're going to be able to tell both those stories. Like, hey, we had a great football program and I went to a very hard university academically. And so, I think building a culture around the unique challenges of Cal, but also, also you want to stress, like, it's not just challenges, right? We do have great support staff. We have like amazing facilities. Like there's just like, it feels like a moment where we can really sell this idea like Cal has the capability and really a fan base that wants to see us win. And so this is the time to invest. And you're seeing that from donors. There's tons of support from donors coming in. I'm hearing like really large numbers of people saying they're going to support and put money into NIL. So now we should have a talented roster, an amazing head coach. And so hopefully, he brings in some great support staff and coaching staff to really help these players out.
So it sounds like there's a lot to pitch to student athletes for a reason to come to Cal. And I know there's more context to 9 years of kind of what I would define it from a fan perspective as mediocrity under Justin Wilcox. I think 6-6 was kind of the baseline expected under him, but I don't necessarily put it all on Wilcox because the institutional support for football just wasn't there. I've spoken with many alumni and gathered a lot of perspectives about support from the university for the program was not there from the administration level during Justin Wilcox's time. I'm wondering, what culture did Justin Wilcox establish in the locker room during your time with him? How did that kind of differ from Sonny Dykes' culture? And with what you saw with Justin Wilcox at the end of his tenure, did you think a lot of that culture that he defined at the beginning permeated and remained, or did it kind of teeter off a little bit?
It's a great question, and something that I think about, and like, some of my former teammates and I that played under Wilcox have talked a lot about. And let me start out by giving a little bit of my thoughts on his whole tenure, because he did, 9 years is a long time to be a head coach at any college football program.
Ooh.
And you're right. Like the record did not reflect, like you said, 6-6 might've been the expectation. I promise you, like that was not Coach Wilcox's expectation. He was not shooting for 6-6. And if I think about the timeline, I was there for his first 2 seasons. We go 5-7. We like had like a couple close games where we could have made a bowl in his first season. Really not his fault, really more on the players. His second season, at that time, like you as a new head coach, you were given about 3 to 4 years to like bring in a recruiting class, develop those players, and then by the time they're maybe juniors and seniors, you get a seed like, hey, does this head coach have it is he cut out to build a program? And so second year we make a bowl game. And honestly, with like that roster, we had really good players, but like a lot of the teams we were beating, I remember my senior year beating USC down at the Coliseum. Like the talent disparity between us, like on paper, they should have beat us by a lot, but we were hanging in those games. And even the games that we lost, we were still in, a lot of them. And so we go 7-5, we make a bowl, and then 2019, I think they win, I think 8 games. So it was trending in the right direction, and then boom, COVID hits. And I'm doing this, I'm doing this preamble because this is something like Wilcox would never say. Like he's never the type of guy to give an excuse to any like publicly, let alone privately. He probably wouldn't even do this. And then 2020 hits, the COVID season happens, and like Cal football probably had to overcome more challenges than any other program across the country because the city of Berkeley just had more strict COVID policies than anywhere else, and the university probably was on the same page as well. And then 2021, there's kind of like the COVID hangover, plus like I think there was like is the Delta variant or whatever kind of came back in the winter. Like so, there was all these factors in those 2 years that made it really challenging for him. And then 2022, 2023, like you can't just like start your program back up from where it was in 2019. Coming out of COVID, there was the just NIL floodgates just got let open, and Cal was honestly just behind the ball on that. And I think other universities, especially like the SEC and Big Ten conference, big programs, like just had alumni ready to go just to throw cash at this new thing where it's like, hey, we're just going to give hundreds of thousands of dollars to any player that comes to our university. And that's kind of how it started. Now it's starting to become more of like I don't know if regulated is the right way, because it doesn't seem like there's many regulation or regulated is the right way to put it. But like there are some more regulations and some standards being put in place. I think there's going to be more to come down the line. But anyways, so Coach Wilcox had to like deal with all of that.
Yeah.
And so that's just a hard challenge to overcome, whether you're the best coach in the world or not. Like it's going to be hard to overcome those things. And then, like you said, like some of the institutional support wasn't there. Like, if you're the chancellor hired at Berkeley, right? Like an amazing research university, tons of Nobel laureates. Football's not necessarily on the front of your mind, and you might not. If you have usually people hired in those positions have just deep academic backgrounds. And so, to get to your point about I do want to answer your question on like the culture that I saw Wilcox bring in, and I think this ties in actually to that long-winded answer about NIL. Wilcox, I think what he really loves about coaching is taking a group of like young men and teaching them some of the concepts that I might have been learning in management classes in the Haas School of Business. Some of the like, hey, how do you build effective teams? What are some of the ways that we communicate? How do we establish culture? Like things I was learning in my business classes, like Coach Wilcox was trying to implement within the football team. And a lot of the times, like building a culture in a great companies, it takes years and sometimes decades to do. And so the same thing is true of like a football program. And so that's why I say like his first 3 years, there seems like to be like Cal football was on an ascending route. COVID happens, NIL. And now with the transfer portal, just you can transfer. Kids are like, there's like 3 teams during the course of the year. There's like your fall camp and season and regular season team. Then there's your bowl game team. And then there's your spring ball team. And like whoever you have in spring ball, like they might transfer in the middle of the summer. You might get, people coming in a fall camp. Then you have right when the regular season ends, you might have a bunch of people leave or hit the transfer portal before you even get to the bowl game. So like in terms of like what Coach Wilcox was really good at focusing on, developing young men, developing team, developing culture, teaching people how to like talk football. Like he's all about like teaching people football, situational awareness. And he still did that this year. So like Cal football is good at, and all the guys in the team this year were like good at situational football and awareness and knowing what you do in certain situations. Like they rep that stuff. He meets on and does cut-ups on all that stuff. You really see the fruit of that investment over the long run. But now with NIL and transfer portal, you spend all these hours in the off season developing a team and a culture, and you're going to have 40 to 60 new people a year from now on the team. And so you lose that cohesion, you lose that like institutional, that team knowledge that he likes to build and teach the young men. And so that I think that's just another challenge. Like one of the things I think it was really tough for him to fight against. But at the same time, I can understand why Ron and Chancellor Lyons felt the need to make a move, make a change, right? Like, so I still will defend Wilcox till the day I die, because I know he's an amazing coach. But at the same time, there's other people within the program that have interests, right? So like the donors and the fans, and there can become some donor fatigue, right? Like you said, 6-6 has kind of been where his record has hovered around the last 9 years. And so if you're trying to sell to donors, hey, we want to bring in money, we just need more money to get kids in, to get a talented roster, they go, well, we've already given money to Coach Wilcox the last couple of years, we haven't seen the results we want, we're going to wait. So then I understand the timing of the decision, but he won't make that excuse, so I'll do it for him. And but he was definitely a person that focused on culture. And I know I've been talking for a really long time, but I'll just give you an actual example of what he did when I was there. So in the off season, he had a leadership council. So he got a group of I think it was 12 of us, and he would meet with us periodically and then kind of ask hey, what can we do better? We're dealing with this situation with this guy. How do we want to handle it? So he was speaking directly to the leaders, but then he would have the leaders go to the team and present the ideas and the things like that. And then another cool thing he did was, I think we did bi-weekly or maybe it was monthly team building exercises where we would just show up to the football facility. The coaches weren't there, but the team leaders had a script or some sort of exercise activity, right, that Coach Wilcox had come up with that he wanted us to do collectively. And we break out into groups and we go talk. And so I would be in a circle with defensive linemen and tight ends and receivers and, people not in my position group. And we would all just go around and we had questions or exercises and we'd share things and kind of open up. And you got to learn more about your teammates, because Coach Wilcox knew if you shared things personally, that's how you came closer together. And then you ended up competing for that person because you knew that person on a deeper level, on a personal level. And so he was all about stuff like that. He would buy us books. He would, share articles. He's just so on top of all that stuff. And so that's why I really appreciated him. I learned a ton of football from him, but even more than that, I learned what I think is a great leader, or what great leadership looks like, and what just being a great person looks like.
I appreciate the long response. I know you mentioned a couple of times it's a long-winded, but it's okay. I love the long responses because I get to learn more about you and your perspective in a way that maybe I'm not going to find out from a different interview. I get to just kind of understand more of your experience. It's really cool.
I woke up to a view of the Bay Bridge. Look across, I could tell you I see all the fog, but it's not what you think. We's Berkeley, puffin' gas, hit lake, yeah, I go berserk. Where did you get your news? Yeah, I heard it here first at the Berkeley Pulse. Berkeley Pulse. I feel alive when I see the blue and gold. We got Marshawn Lynch and he doing the most. You could talk all that shit, but the West is the best coast, and we gotta be the best though. And I gotta spit the best flows. Ay, we the Berkeley Pulse. We the Berkeley Pulse, man.
2, 3, go Bears! Thank you. Go Bears.
This is the Berkeley Pulse, your source for Cal sports and Cal